I'm Tiffany Cloud, host of The Storm. Thank you for watching on WYLN 35. Today I'm joined by Congressman Lou Barletta of the 11th Congressional District. We'll be discussing cybersecurity, hacked emails, the presidential race, and of course, his own race to retain his congressional seat. It's all coming up on The Storm right after the break. Welcome back to The Storm. I'm joined today by Congressman Lou Barletta of the 11th Congressional District. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Good to see you.
There is so much going on. I was prepping for this show and news was changing by the second. So I have a lot to jam in and we'll do our best. I want to start with many intelligence experts say that cyber warfare is really one of the biggest threats to us as a nation, whether it's Russian hacks, Chinese hacks, independent hackers. It's an area of vulnerability. In light of that, and we know from the recent hacks of the DNC emails, this is a real threat. In light of all this, I have to start because I haven't talked to you at length about Hillary Clinton's unprotected server kept in her basement. The fact that her system was breached, we know it. The fact that even an Iranian name, a man who was in her emails, he was just hanged a couple of days ago also by Iran. This is serious stuff. This is dangerous. And I'd like to just sort of get your take on how concerning it is to have someone running for president of the United States seemingly mishandling electronic information.
Well, first of all, I think we could take the word seemingly and take that out. She didn't seemingly mishandle it.
You're right, actually. And the FBI acknowledged that. You're right. She
knowingly mishandled the most sensitive information at one of the highest, if not the highest, most vulnerable positions in the United States government as Secretary of State. And then lied to the repeatedly lied to the American people that nothing was marked classified, that there was no classified information there. Director Comey went right down the list that was not true. There was classified information. In fact, there was top secret information.
And higher than top secret information.
So the fact that someone who's running for president of the United States would disregard the safety of people who are serving our country and the American people who are being put at risk, I believe disqualifies her in being commander-in-chief.
And not only does it disqualify her, I think many would argue, and I'm one of the people who believes that she should be in jail for what she has done, or certainly face significant legal consequences, including not be able to have a security clearance. Anybody else who did this, Congressman, anybody else who did this would not be eligible for a security clearance.
She wouldn't be able to pass a background screening
Correct.
right now. She would not be able to pass a background. She would fail based on what she did. And it just seems that the media really is just glossing over, what I think is the worst fact that came out during this campaign is what she did, and yet focusing so much on Donald Trump and the things that he said. And
yeah, let's talk about that, because many of us will say that Mr. Trump does have an impulse control issue. There are times that one would wish he would just let the negative press, when it does come to Hillary, let it run, and he tends to say something, he gets it moved back to him. And the liberal media is always going to be harder on the Republican. It's unfortunately the way our nation has become. That said, though, why is there such focus on his words and hypothetical analysis of what he may have meant by this adjective, as opposed to her very real, factual, unlawful actions? Exactly.
They're comparing what he said to they're not even comparing it to what she has done. She was involved in negotiating the Iran deal. She lied again just 2 weeks ago to Chris Wallace on a Sunday talk show in saying that the FBI director Comey agreed with her that she did not mishandle. What world is she in?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the case at all.
She has lied before, and she continues to lie about her lies.
Well, and even the families of, just to shift gears quickly, the families of those killed in Benghazi are suing her because they're even saying she lied to them about the causes of the deaths of their children.
And just the other day, Omar Mateen's father, who is the terrorist
in Orlando,
who killed the American people in Orlando, is standing behind her at a rally.
And you don't get that kind of seating.
Well, you don't get there by coming early to the rally.
No, you do not get there early.
You get escorted. You get escorted. You are handpicked. The people that are behind the candidates are handpicked. Again, her campaign said that we knew nothing about it.
Sure.
The DNC said they knew nothing about it, but he himself, when interviewed, said he was invited by the Democrat Party.
Of course he was.
How many lies, can possibly be glossed over by the media, and yet they're going to focus on what Donald Trump meant. He clarified his Second Amendment statement. He clarified what he said. Obviously, the Second Amendment. And this is the statement,
where people are saying he may have implied that he wanted something to happen to her.
Right. And what he said is that the Second Amendment people are very powerful, and they may have a say in it. For example, they could put pressure on the Senate not to who she nominates, not to confirm them. He clarified what he said, and in the media that still wasn't good enough for them.
It's been going on
they
for
said,
days.
no, this is what you meant. I mean, how much more can the American people take of her best pack is the media, is the Main Street media right now. They are in her pocket, and they're going to do everything they can to slant this election. And I think for those who care about the Second Amendment, those who care about who sits on the Supreme Court that is now tied 4-4 and what it means to our children and grandchildren, for those that believe that this country is going down the wrong road in how we handle our military, how we handle the threats to our national security, how we handle our veterans, how we handle the overregulation that is killing jobs and businesses. They are trying to slant this election in the direction of Hillary Clinton. There's no question of that.
The thing is also, I think that we kind of know what we're going to get with Secretary Clinton if she were elected president, because it's going to be a lot more of the same. There's not necessarily a chance of things getting better. With Donald Trump, whether he makes you a little uncomfortable sometimes, there's a chance of things getting a whole lot better.
Yeah, there is. Number one, you know, I think there's a part of him that is genuine, that as much as you know, people dislike some of the things he'll say, people say, you know, he's genuine. He's saying what he's thinking, and even
what
if
a lot
you
of
agree,
people are thinking.
right? And whether you agree with it or not, he's being truthful in what he's saying. He's not a politician. Mm-hmm. He's not trained. What would you rather? Someone who tells you something that they're feeling or thinking, and you may not agree with it, or someone who will tell you what you want to hear and knowingly is lying to you?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and with that, we're going to go to our first break. We'll be right back on The Storm. Welcome back to The Storm. I want to localize our conversation about cybersecurity. How vulnerable is our power grid locally?
Well, I think that will be the next 9/11 attack. That's what they are planning as the next biggest attack on our country, is a cyber attack on our power grid. When you couple that with a physical attack at the same time, it is possible that a good section of the United States could be taken down. Mm-hmm. I just, as a chairman of a subcommittee that oversees FEMA, held a hearing with the director of FEMA, Craig Fugate, utilities, and how prepared are we for this, since we know that there is an attempt every day to take down our power grid. They were successful in the Ukraine in December of 2015. And there was this sense is that we are prepared. We know that is the biggest threat to our country right now, and we are prepared. And I pressed them a little further, Tiffany, because I've been traveling in different regions of the country and talking to local officials. And I disagree for this reason. When the power goes down, when an attack happens and the power goes down, it's not like a section of town. It's not like the town. It's not like, a region. I'm talking about state after state after state. There will be, FEMA will not be here. PEMA will not be here. The people who will be charged with keeping order and keeping people alive during that time is local government. I ask every local official I come in contact, well, if this happens, how prepared are you, and how long, do you know how long you need to be maintaining peace and order? People will be trapped. There'll be people sick who can't get to the hospitals. And nobody knows that answer, and nobody would go on record. And I finally got Craig Fugate, the director of FEMA, to go on record that if this were to happen, we can expect the power to be out weeks, not days. Now, when I talk to local officials and I ask them, are you prepared to be able to do that? I mean, weeks, Tiffany, you won't be able to get fuel out of the ground. You can just let your imagination run with you what will happen in weeks. The looting, the violence.
Well, just the average person wouldn't even have a clue if this happened what to do. I mean, I certainly have, and I like to think I'm relatively aware of what's going on. I wouldn't know what to do.
And this is a threat. So I got the FBI and Department of Homeland Security to agree to begin to hold briefings with the utility companies who will work with the local governments. And anytime I have an opportunity to talk to any local officials, I remind them of this, that they need to have a plan in place. Because this threat is real. The cyber attacks to banking institutions, to insurance companies, we know that happens all the time. But what people don't know is they attempt to attack our power grid every day. And if they are successful at any point, we shouldn't be caught, because loss of life will happen in the first 24, 48, 72 hours when it's just dark, there's no power, nobody knows what to do, you can't communicate with anyone. I mean, just imagine the elderly. And mass chaos. There will be literally chaos, and we need to be prepared for this, and because it is a threat to. This is the next 9/11 of what they would like to do.
And it's true. We're not hearing enough about it. We're not hearing enough in local media about it, and I certainly am willing to do more to get the word out, and so that these groups start communicating and communicating to us.
Put a plan in place.
Yes.
Have a plan in place that if this happens, we know what to do.
One more local question before we get back to some federal things. I have actually two questions related to your race specifically. One is, your challenger put up a post on his Facebook page that he has requested 9 debates from you, one to occur in each county of the 9 counties that make up the 11th district. Question 1 is, are you going to agree to 9 debates? Question 2 is about the fact that he infused his campaign recently with over $300,000. Do you have any concerns about that?
Well, first, let's talk about the debates. Obviously, the people in the 11th Congressional District need to hear where we stand on issues, what we plan to do, and our backgrounds, and that obviously has to happen. And
so you will agree to some debates?
Yes, my campaign will work with his campaign, and there will be. We will have debates. There's no question about it. People need to hear, where we stand on issues. As far as him infusing his own money into the campaign, I look at what this campaign for me is about what I've done. The work that I've done while I was in Congress, and how I've connected with the people of the 11th Congressional District. Whether it was my protecting volunteer firefighters bill that kept them out of the Affordable Care Act, whether it was the SHINE program that is changing the lives and the directions. I single-handedly kept the funding in the federal budget for the SHINE program that is changing the lives of children. I'm going to talk about the $2.9 billion that I've saved taxpayers in changing the way that federal agencies lease properties. So this campaign for me is about the work that I've done, being a national leader on illegal immigration, at the forefront of these matters. Doesn't matter It's not about what the money, his own money that he's put in the campaign. I'm going to talk about the things that I've done.
Okay, and in fairness, just so the audience knows, I have extended an invitation for Congressman Barletta's opponent to come on the show. I have not yet received a response, but that invitation is open. Okay, let's go back to my favorite person, Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry, but there's just so much going on. Judicial Watch sued to try to get emails that were never turned over by Clinton, and they won a suit. They accessed a bunch of emails, and these emails recently showed that there may have been some pay-to-play going on, whereby foreign governments, as they made large donations to the Clinton Foundation, seemed to may have had access to the State Department that they perhaps should not have had. This seems to be an enormous story. Should it be an enormous story? Should we be concerned?
I think it should be more than an enormous story. I think there should be a criminal investigation. Mm-hmm. This is, again, if you remember, she wiped out, deleted 33,000 emails that she claimed were personal emails about yoga and recipes.
Sure they were.
And birthday parties. And the FBI finds out that that wasn't totally true. Correct. Another lie. Mm-hmm. So do you believe that what they deleted, that they knew that criminally they would have a problem with, and the fact that there is evidence of pay to play through the State Department? And the question has to be asked, who does Hillary Clinton work for? The American people, the Clinton Foundation, or private donors that had access because of her position as Secretary of State, where she used that to obviously it's pay for play.
Well, and the thing that just came out recently on the taping, around the taping of this show, is the fact that Department of Justice doesn't plan to do a criminal investigation of this.
Well, this is really, I don't know how much more, again, the American people could take, because if this were you, or this was myself, or anyone else, and we go back to the mishandling of classified information, I have to sign documents at being on a Homeland Security committee. I get classified briefings. It would
be bad.
I would go to jail.
Yes, you would.
I would go to jail.
Yes, you would.
The Clintons are treated differently than anyone else, and that's not what America's about. It's justice for all,
right.
And unless your name is Clinton.
Apparently. So with that, we're going to go to break. We'll be right back on The Storm. Welcome back to The Storm. Something pretty big happened recently as well. Obama paid $400 million to Iran, and by coincidence, a bunch of Americans who had been held in Iran were released. Now, there are those who will say that that was a ransom payment, that our president paid a ransom to a country that hates us, that is part of the axis of evil. And Charles Krauthammer even said that if this were done in the private sector, it would be the equivalent of money laundering. As a member of Congress, A, what's your reaction to this? And B, what, if anything, other than verbal condemnation, can you do about it?
Well, first of all, if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Mm-hmm. No way would we negotiate a deal with Iran and coincidentally they released the hostages without us knowing the timing of this was going to be at the same. It was obvious. Mm-hmm. We give the money, we get our hostages. I'm old enough to remember when we didn't negotiate with terrorists. Mm-hmm. The worst part of this, Tiffany, is this money will be used against the United States military. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible.
And it will be used because, and I've told you this privately, but I'll share publicly, my own husband was hit by an EFP, which is an Iranian explosive device in Iraq. And they were supplying horrendous devices, worse than IEDs, that have killed and injured hundreds of American soldiers.
Well, and this is an administration that negotiated the Iran deal. Hillary Clinton, part of that, negotiating the Iran deal that will allow them to have nuclear weapons in a short time. This is unbelievable that we're watching this happening. And what can Congress do? We passed 3 bills that basically would say that the president has to report to Congress anytime he's negotiating for Americans to be released from Iran, that the Iranians cannot have access to U.S. dollars. The Senate has to act on it. We passed those bills already. But let's be honest. Does this president care what Congress has to say? Mm-hmm. Does he care about, he just does what he wants to do? Obviously, the Clintons believe that they're above the law themselves, that they, you think she'll be any different than watching what Obama has done as president, knowing that she got away with what she got away with the FBI? What's she going to be afraid of Congress for?
Right.
I think this is the most dangerous time and most critical time in American history.
With 1 minute left in the show, what do you think we should expect to see, and what will make the difference that Donald Trump can do in the coming weeks?
I think Donald Trump needs to get back on his message. We can't be losing our jobs to China and Mexico, that we need to bring these jobs back here. We have to have a strong military. We need to protect our national security. She wants to bring over 400% more Syrian refugees back here to the United States. Pennsylvania is like 4th in the country in Syrian refugees that we know ISIS wants to infiltrate them.
Sure.
We want our children to be safe. Mm-hmm. That's what our government should be doing. So Donald Trump needs to get back on message that he's the only one that's going to secure our borders, going to go after illegal immigration, going to fight China, negotiate these trade deals to bring our jobs back. He needs to get back on message. Okay, well, I thank you so much for coming in and talking to me on The Storm. Hopefully you'll be back before November. And remember, folks, when you look around and you don't like what you see, don't complain about it. You can do something about it. You can vote. And thank you for watching.